Thich Nhat Hanh calls these the 5 wonderful precepts, to emphasize that this is actually a practice of love. The 5 lay precepts are really at that first level of do no harm, restraint, holding us back from doing things that harm ourselves and others. Stopping killing, stopping taking what hasn't been freely given, or stealing, stopping unwise and unkind sexual behaviour, stopping lying, and then stopping taking intoxicants. These 5 things can really ease the mind, transform our hearts and minds, benefit ourselves and others. So those bugs that you don't want in your house, right? These are living beings with the Buddha potential who, just like me, want to be happy and not suffer. And we know that because they run when we come at them with the thing to try and catch them or kill them. They want to be happy.
I remember going up to my Venerable teacher and saying to Venerable, when I sit down and I'm meditating and I have these past memories of indiscretion, I said, how do I deal with these? And Venerable just looked at me and he said, just don't do them. And as simple as that sound, it was in that moment that I realized it was within my power.
This relates right back to the point about how too often lack of ethical conduct is a cause for low self-esteem and self-hatred.
It's very easy to miss, which is that the precepts are freedom. People think of it as like tying you up, but it's actually freedom. Friends, welcome to episode 44 of Vibe with Venerables, 1 hour of live Dharma and dialogue where you get to talk directly to a respected Venerable. I'm Meng, co-founder of Buddhism.net and your host. So last week, Venerable Thubten Chodron gave us an overview of the 3 higher trainings: ethical conduct, samadhi, which is concentration, and wisdom. So in the next 3 classes, we will learn more about the first higher training, ethical conduct, starting with Venerable Thubten Lamsel today. Venerable Lamsel began studying the Dharma in 2011. She took Anagarika precepts in 2017 and received Bhikshuni ordination in Taiwan in 2024. At Sravasti Abbey, Venerable Lamsel facilitates broadcasting and archival of live teachings. She helps out in prison outreach, in event management, and the library. And she also teaches meditation workshops and Buddhism in the community. As Venerable Chodron says last week, and as you heard on the video just now, ethical conduct is about not being a jerk. And today, Venerable Lamsel will teach us 5 ways to not be a jerk. Not 1, not 2, but 5. As a reminder, friends, this session will be recorded and then uploaded on the YouTube later. And if you're comfortable doing so, we'd like to invite you to turn the camera on so that Venerable Lamsel can see you, and she loves seeing you. With that, dear Venerable, can you start us off with a blessing?
Sure. So the prayers will be in the chat box, and first we can visualize in the space in front the light body of Shakyamuni Buddha so that we're not reciting in these prayers to empty space. We're really feeling connected to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, or the holy beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging with generosity and the other far-reaching practices, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Venerable. Friends, before we begin our class, I want to invite all of you to go on Zoom chat and answer this question, if you'd like to. And the question is, what is your learning intention for today? this one, the answer is to not be a jerk anymore to anyone or anything. The same as my intention. Actually, mine is to be less of a jerk than I am. So, to be more committed to the Dharma, to be present. I want to feel inspired and pure. To be patient. To take what's offered. That's a beautiful way to say it. To listen with open mind and heart, critically examining my life. And this person said, I intend to learn more about how I can increase my ethical conduct from day to day and grow as a human being so I can benefit others. Oh, that's another beautiful way to say it. And to continue, another person said, to continue the path to end suffering. Oh, those are beautiful. Thank you, friends. So friends, Venerable will talk for roughly 20 to 25 minutes and then answer your questions live. And there's a Q&A box on Zoom. Anytime you have a question, please feel free to type your question onto the Q&A board. Or if you see a question that you liked that somebody else already asked, please feel free to upvote that. With that, dear Venerable, may we invite you to begin?
Sure. And to start, perhaps just come back to your breath for one moment. And just imagine what it would be like if today, right now, every single human being, every living being, every animal, every human being stopped killing. Just for one day. Domestic violence would stop. Wars would cease. The millions of animals that human beings eat would be alive. Just one day from human beings refraining from one action. And the result is just kind of mind-blowing. And so, yeah, ethical conduct is so incredibly powerful. And as the first of the 3 higher trainings, ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. And we need all of them, and we practice them all together as we go along the path. But ethical conduct is like the foundation from which, if we don't have that, then the others aren't going to flow. And there's kind of this beautiful dependent arising where, the Buddha attained enlightenment by developing the wisdom that saw reality exactly as it is. He did that in dependence on concentration that could actually focus on an object long enough to penetrate the nature of reality. And he could develop that concentration based on having purified his mind and body through ethical conduct. Because as Venerable was saying, that when we don't live ethically, our mind is in turmoil. Because we do and say and think in ways that are harmful to ourselves and others. So again and again, we have to come back to living in ethical conduct, living a pure life, living a life that we feel inspired and pure and have this daily reflection on what am I doing, what's the impact of what I'm doing. And I just love how Venerable reduces it down to stop being a jerk, because it connects with the heart in a really easy way. And what I'd like to go into today is the 5 lay precepts. 5 ways that we can stop being a jerk. 5 ways that we can actually really transform our own hearts and minds and that of others, like immediately, day by day. And these aren't a thou shalt not, that, and they're not like a straitjacket that we're putting ourselves in where we feel like we can't move anymore because we've said that we're not doing this anymore. but it's actually freedom. To commit ourselves to these practices, whether you take the precepts or not, these are trainings. These are things that we practice because we're going to make mistakes because we're not Buddhas yet. So it's not that we can do it perfectly right from the start. And the scope of these are quite profound, from coarse to subtle. So these are trainings that we can, from today, try on and see the impact that it has and check out for ourselves. How it eases the mind, how it allows the mind to settle and feel inspired and pure, and how it ripples out to affect all those around us in really positive ways. And in terms of ethical conduct, it can be broken down in different ways. Last week, Venerable said that there's a pratimoksha level, or the individual liberation. Then there's the bodhisattva ethical conduct and tantric ethical conduct. And another way to look at ethical conduct is the ethical conduct of restraint, so refraining from harmful actions, the ethical conduct of gathering virtue, doing positive actions, and the ethical conduct of benefiting sentient beings. There's many ways to cut the pie. And the 5 lay precepts are really at that first level of do no harm, restraint, holding us back from doing things that harm ourselves and others. But it said if we have that ethical conduct of restraint, we accomplish gathering virtue, we accomplish benefiting others just by way of doing that. Whereas if the opposite, if we don't have this ethical conduct of restraint, how can we benefit others? How can we accumulate virtue? So this level of do not kill, don't stopping killing, from stopping taking what hasn't been freely given, or stealing, stopping unwise and unkind sexual behavior, stopping lying, and then stopping taking intoxicants. These 5 things can really ease the mind, transform our hearts and minds, benefit ourselves and others. So I want to go into this in a little bit more. And I love how Thich Nhat Hanh calls these the 5 wonderful precepts. And to emphasize that this is actually a practice of love, because we protect ourselves and we protect others by committing ourselves to this training. And what I wanted to go through actually is this kind of ceremony that we do at the Abbey every 2 weeks. And this is basically, the monastics every 2 weeks, we confess and repent our precepts, our longer list of things that we've agreed to not do anymore for this life. And so with the monastics doing that, for everyone who comes to the Abbey and everyone who takes refuge in precepts with Venerable Thubten children, she advises them, do this ceremony on the full and new moon days every 2 weeks, or whenever you can, right? But it's a way to check in and to check up and on our behavior and see, is it in line with my values of do no harm, be of benefit, working towards liberation and awakening? And what I love about this is these short little phrases for each precept. And first it says what we're not going to do, but then it says what we will do. What are we actually moving towards? So it's not just kind of what we're moving away from, but what we're going to engage in. And then it talks about the impact that it has on ourselves and others. So there's so much here. So the first one, the first precept, to not kill, or what Thich Nhat Hanh calls reverence for life. And so Venerable Children writes, from my own experience and examination, I know that harming others, specifically taking their lives, harms myself and others. Therefore, I undertake to protect life and avoid killing. By my doing this, all beings will feel safe around me, and peace in the world will be enhanced. Wow. So in each of these 5 verses, to reflect on every 2 weeks, whether you have the precepts or not, it starts with our own experience and examination. This isn't something to be taken on blindly, but rather, well, if I stop physically harming myself and others, and to the utmost degree to stop killing, what impact does that have? Imagine every single living being feeling safe around you. Wow, right? And these precepts aren't just at the level of our actions. It really changes the mind. Yeah, because this isn't just about not killing another human being, it's any living being. So those bugs that you don't want in your house, right? Or the pests that we might otherwise get the pest control in, or, I mean, I'm Australian, so mosquitoes and spiders are things that you get. Growing up, we had the fly spray and mosquito spray and the sandals that you just thwack. That's how I was raised. And now my attitude has changed. I mean, in Australia, these things can kill you, right? Not the cockroaches, but the spiders can kill you. But still, it's like these are living beings with the Buddha potential who, just like me, want to be happy and not suffer. And we know that because they run when we come at them with the thing to try and catch them or kill them. They want to be happy. And how wonderful it is when we really engage with this way of living, when instead of wanting to run from them or wanting to harm them, we go, oh wow, another living being, and we say a mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, wanting to share some Dharma with them, and then we move them to a safe space. And one story from one of my teachers, he was in India, and my friend was wanting to meet him to go for lunch or for something. But there was this line of ants out the front of the house. And to leave the house, he would have to walk on them. So I think he didn't come at the appointed time. And when she came to try and say, like, why are you here? It's because he couldn't leave the house because he didn't want to harm anything. There was no way for him to get out without killing the ant. So it's like, okay, I won't go. Because it's more important to not harm these living beings. And in my own experience, sometimes when it rains a lot here, all the worms will come up from the earth on the gravel. And walking down the road, it's the road, so it's gravel road. But for some reason, the worms try and go from one side to the other, from the mud on either side. And as they crawl along, they encase themselves in little pebbles and stones and the silt from the gravel, and they slowly dry up, and then they'll die. It's quite horrible. But so when I was walking down the road, and the road is just littered with these worms that are like trying to get across, and at first I'm like, oh wow, there's too many for me to pick up. And I'm wanting going for a walk, I'm wanting my exercise. This is inconvenient. But then I was like, I walked past and I felt like this horrible sense of, well, I could pick them up and move them back into the water on the side and then they could live. And so I made it a practice of I'll walk as many as I can pick up and then move to the side and put back in the water. This is saving life. This is making a connection with other living beings so that in however many future lives, may we be connected in human form and share and practice the Dharma together. So, and that was incredibly uplifting and pleasing for the mind to be able to. Was I able to get them all? No. But did I make an impact to the ones that I could? Yes. This is a beautiful practice. And then the second precept is not taking what is not freely given. Sometimes this is just called not stealing, but it really doesn't capture the nuances of this. And in another way, we could say it's a practice of generosity. And so Venerable's text reads, again, from my own experience and examination, I know that taking things that have not been given to me harms myself and others. Therefore, I undertake to respect and protect others' property and to avoid stealing or taking what has not been freely given. By my doing this, all beings can be secure around me, and harmony and generosity in society will increase. It's surprising when we look back on, I found it surprising, looking back on my past actions, how entitled I can be or have been, especially in workplaces where it's like I'm not getting paid enough, I don't get long enough breaks, I work hard enough that I can take this thing that hasn't really been given to me and it's okay. Yeah, I remember working in a restaurant when I was in college and I felt like I wasn't getting paid enough. And I was vegan and the food that we could take mostly wasn't stuff that I could eat. So I felt kind of entitled, well, I'll take this other thing that I haven't been told that I can take because this is what I can eat. But it was stealing from my bosses who were actually incredibly kind to me. And yeah, kind in many ways. And it's something that I've purified and it's like, wow, to see that frame of mind that's just like, I'm right, I'm great, I can take what I want. Whereas it breaks trust, it leaves you feeling dirty, and it's not an inspiring example. And karmically, it will be creating suffering either immediately when we get caught, or in the short term when someone finds out, or creating that habit where we get more and more brazen with what we feel like we can take. And in future lives, it said that stealing will be the result of having our own possessions stolen or taken from us, and we know how painful and inconvenient that is. Or we won't have possessions to start with because we took others. I love at the Abbey how we can leave things out. There's 20 plus residents here, and sometimes we have 30 to 40 guests. We don't lock away our possessions. Like we have our laptops and we go from teachings, we go to lunch, we come back. We trust that people are going to not steal. We have this ethos that we trust other sentient beings and we live by ethical conduct. And therefore there's this beautiful way of living in trust together. Imagine being able to offer that to others. Okay. And the third precept, wise and kind sexual behavior, or not engaging in unkind or unwise sexual behavior. What Thich Nhat Hanh calls sexual responsibility. I quite like that. So again, from my own experience and examination, I know that engaging in unwise sexual behavior harms myself and others. Therefore, I undertake to respect my own and others' bodies, to use my sexuality wisely and kindly, and to avoid sexual expression which could harm myself and others physically or mentally. By my doing this, all beings will be able to relate to me honestly and with trust, and mutual respect among people will ensue. There is so much harm in the world based on unkind and unwise sexual behavior. I mean, the most obvious is rape, or sexual abuse, but also adultery, going with others' partners, or just casual, thoughtless sexual behavior that leaves other beings confused and hurt. And this, in our culture, when things are so sexualized, where we can so easily treat others as just objects of desire, we objectify people. But there's a living being there who has hopes, fears, dreams, concerns, the Buddha nature. And so this is really an invitation to only engage in sexual behavior from a place of love and care and concern. Imagine what society would be like if we related to each other in our sexuality from a place of care and concern and mutual respect. My goodness. Then fourth, not lying, or deep listening and loving speech. So, from my own experience and examination, again, always checking up. This precept is actually the one when the Buddha in the suttas, he spent the most time detailing speech, because this is where we have weapons of mass destruction, right, located right in our body. So, from my own experience and examination, I know that saying untrue things for the sake of personal gain harms myself and others. Therefore, I undertake to speak truthfully and avoid lying or deceiving others. By my doing this, all beings can trust my words, and friendship among people will increase. So this is, at the one level, it's about lying. And here I love how it says, saying untrue things for the sake of personal gain. Because so often I say, oh, there's just little white lies that I tell to not hurt someone's feelings. But we're trying to gain something from that, either not losing face, not having a bad reputation, not exposing our flaws, trying to cover something up. It really is, when we lie, coming from a self-centered attitude. And so to really check up, and when we commit to this truthful speech, then it invites this level of transparency that is uncomfortable but also liberating. When we commit to this wholeheartedly, it actually holds us back from doing things we shouldn't or don't want to do in the first place, because we know that we're not going to cover it up. We're going to be truthful and honest about it. We're not going to lie. We're not going to do things like that. And also, there's so much, I think, shame and breaks in trust and friendships and isolation, inner isolation, that can come when we've done something we regret. We try and cover it up and pretend it's not there. Whereas when we can admit it to ourselves, admit it to others, kind of crack it open, then we can really fully release ourselves from the prison of just staying with that action, but actually then engage in purification processes and let it go and see that we're not defined by it, not defined by our past mistakes. And lying is really one of the causes of the biggest breaks of trust. And sometimes we lie about the most stupidest things. So why couldn't we just be honest about that? Or, yeah. And then the fifth, not taking intoxicants. So from my own experience and examination, I know that taking intoxicants harms myself and others. Therefore, I undertake to avoid taking intoxicating substances, alcohol, recreational drugs, and tobacco, and to keep my body and environment clean. By my doing this, my mindfulness, introspective alertness will increase, my mind will be clearer, and my actions will be thoughtful and considerate. And here again, I want to emphasize that this is like we undertake, so again, it's a training. I mean, when we take the 5 precepts formally, then ideally we do not do these things ever again this life. But that's a high bar. And in the Q&A or after, if we want to get into how we ameliorate or make up for any mistakes that we can go into that. But this precept was actually really the turning point for me. I took refuge in the end of 2012, after I'd been studying for a few years. But I took the 5 precepts with the Dalai Lama in 2013 when he visited Sydney. And the first 4 precepts I was comfortable with, and things weren't going on my mind about that. But taking intoxicants, I was, my partner at the time and the family, drinking just a glass of wine with a meal, it was just part of the culture. New Zealand culture is land of red wine and beer. And I remember this one situation at Christmas time where you had a beer before lunch, so on an empty stomach, just one light beer, and I was trying to learn how to knit. And my friend was trying to show me how to knit, and being rather small, on one beer I couldn't control my hands properly. Like the dexterity to learn how to knit. I wasn't drunk, but it was just I could feel the impact of that alcohol on my motor skills, and I was shocked. And it's like, why am I doing this to myself? I don't really like it that much anyway. It's just what we do, is what everyone else is doing. And if My goal is to cultivate wisdom as a Buddhist. Why am I taking substances that actively dull me and make me stupid? It made no sense. So then 6 months later, being in this big auditorium, I think with 10,000 people, or at least the public talk with His Holiness had 10,000 people. I'm not sure about the other teachings. But when he offered the lay precepts, it was like relief. And I was like, wow, yes, I'm taking all 5. I commit to this wholeheartedly. And now I have permission to do what I already want to do anyway. Now I have my excuse. I've taken the precept. Now when I go to parties or I'm at the in-laws' house or out with friends, I say, oh, no, thanks. I don't drink. And I have this solid, unshakable resolve that I'm not going to do that anymore. The decision has been made. This is how the precepts or ethical conduct is freedom, because we've already made up our mind. We don't have to think about it anymore. We just know what we're going to do. And that was really transformative for me. And it eventually led to me being in robes. I don't want to scare anyone. Taking the 5 precepts doesn't mean that you'll end up in robes. But for me, it was that really big turning point where I'm living more and more in accord with my values, and it is a relief to be able to do so. And at the end of this ceremony, again, where to do every 2 weeks, to check up, to reflect, to go deeper and deeper into this practice, because we're going to be evolving and deepening our ethical conduct until we become Buddhas, until we are liberated. So in the ceremony it says, having previously wandered in confusion and used misdirected methods in an attempt to be happy, today I am delighted to choose to live in accord with these wise guidelines by the Buddha. Wow. Yeah, and then remembering that the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats, these beings I admire so much, have also followed these guidelines, I too will enter the path to liberation and awakening just as they have done. May all beings throughout infinite space reap the benefits of my living in accord with the precepts. May I become a fully awakened Buddha for the benefit of all. So that's the reach. Ethical conduct benefits us right now by having a clear mind, a mind without remorse, without regret. But in the long run, this is the foundation that will lead us to liberation and full awakening. And because we can see that this practice is related with concentration and wisdom, because we have to cultivate that mindfulness and introspection to check up on our actions. Was that in accord with my values? Am I following the precepts? And that strengthening our mindfulness and our introspective awareness is what enhances and builds a foundation for our concentration. And then we also have to develop our wisdom when we discern, like, is this a cause for happiness or is this a cause for suffering? And how do we apply the precepts to our life? Because it's not so easy sometimes to discern how to act in this very nuanced situation. This is where it becomes really a lifelong practice. Lifetimes long practice. Okay, I think we'll stop here.
Thank you, Venerable. Friends, before we begin our Q&A, shall we just take a moment to take a breath? So let's sit in a comfortable position and just calm our minds by bringing attention to the breath. And now just take another moment to reflect on what we just learned and how it relates to our lives. And thank you for your attention. Okay, friends, let's begin our discussion. If you have any questions for the Venerable or any reflection you want to share, please use the hand-raising function on Zoom, or if you prefer, you can put your question into the Q&A box on Zoom, or if you like, you can just upvote existing questions on Zoom, and as usual, we'll give priority to live questions. So we have a live question from Ziyun.
Venerable.
Hello.
Thank you for the beautiful talk. While listening to your Dharma talk, I was wondering, about like my situation. I often try to capture bugs alive and just go outside to let it out. So a few months ago, it seemed like there was a small cockroach, but I couldn't let it near our apartment because then it may come back to another person's house. So it was maybe 2 a.m. or something like that. But I went to a cemetery near my apartment. It's like maybe just a few minutes walk, not very far, but it's just nature there. So I just let it out. But after that, I thought, oh, Gian, maybe you just have killed so many bugs on the way by just walking for 3 minutes. So you just saved one bee, but like you didn't see any other kind of visible insects, but so many microorganisms or so many small beings, they may have been on the road. So like, Gian, did you really like save something or did you kill more? So like this kind of keeps happening to me. Like when I, for example, save a raccoon in a trash dumpster, I didn't have much knowledge about raccoon. I didn't know I could just put one big branch that it could just come out by itself without knowing that I just was ignorant about the cause and effect. So I just put like lots of cardboard boxes, making like stairs for it, like putting tapes on it. But it ended up like the boxes just got broken and then raccoon was still there. And then I just wasted, the plastic tapes, which will kill other beings, right? Because plastics will eventually kill other beings, like when it becomes broken down by water and sunlight. So like I just thought, oh my God, your ignorance actually kills more things than saving something. Then I found that people just save it with just one branch and the rocket can just go out. So like so I don't know many times what to do because of this, lack of wisdom. So do you have any advice on this?
I mean, just by being alive entails unintentionally killing many living beings. I mean, every morning at the Abbey, we do some morning mantras and we bless our feet by reciting a mantra, blowing on our fingers and rubbing that on the soles of our feet, because we know that just by walking around unintentionally, we will take the life of little beings that we don't see. Or sometimes cleaning. I think it's a spot of dirt. I go to wipe it and then it moves and it's too late and my hand is already in motion and it's gone. So the main thing is about our intention. If we really set a strong intention to do no harm and to not kill, then that's the main thing. And to also refine our carefulness. Like when I'm cleaning, can I slow down a little bit so that I can inspect if that little black dot is going to move or is it just fluff? And if it is fluff, can I have the patience to take it, to do the task a little bit more slowly and get the bug and move it out of harm's way? So, I mean, wonderful that you saved the cockroach. And did you harm anything beneath your feet at 2 a.m. when you couldn't see anything? I don't know. But you didn't have the intention to do it. Maybe next time you bring a flashlight and you do your best. Microbes, I mean, my goodness, it would mean that we couldn't walk anywhere. So it's kind of doing what we can within being reasonable. And with the raccoon, we have limited knowledge about limited subjects, right? So you did your best. Now you know better. Next time. So things aren't perfect. And this is part of the refinement of our ethical conduct as well, as we learn and we grow and we are increasingly more skillful on what we can do. Yeah.
I see. Thank you so much. That makes me kind of notice that I don't need to feel guilty so much when I found I may have, been more harm than like saving. Yeah, I'm just doing my best with a good intention, and I also maybe I want to celebrate. I'm growing to be more skillful, so that's really a good perspective to them. Thank you so much.
And Jin, can I ask, do you have the 5 precepts?
Yes.
Yeah, so the one point I wanted to make that I didn't is the power of actually holding the precepts as opposed to, I mean, right now, here everyone is not killing. I don't think. I can't see half the screen. I can see names, but everyone that I can see, I'm pretty sure is not killing. And that's great. But for those who actually hold the precept of not killing, we are creating skies of merit right now by just sitting here because we've committed for our life to not kill. And so therefore the merit accumulates just effortlessly from that day forward. Whereas those who haven't committed to that formally are not necessarily creating that merit because the intention to not kill is actually not there unless you've made that intention for that specific thing. So this is the benefit of actually formally taking the precepts. Not to put pressure, but just to see the benefit of why we'd actually do this in a more formal way. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, June.
Thank you.
Venerable, there are two things that you said I want to repeat because they sound like really important. First is it's about intention. I think, and the Buddha actually said that karma is intention, is volition. So that's one. And then the other thing you said, which I thought was really important, is ethical conduct. This training is a process. It's not binary. It's not like okay, I'm done. It's a process that we do it every time, every day.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's why on like every 2 weeks the monastics purify and confess their precepts, and therefore this 2-week ceremony for lay people, so that we refine more and more what we do.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, Muku, my brother, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Venerable. That was a wonderful talk, and I really appreciate that. My question is about your fifth point about intoxication. These days there's a lot of addiction to cell phones and digital media. And I wonder if you believe we should consider that an intoxicant.
I understand how we could do that. Yeah, definitely. And in Thich Nhat Hanh's writings on the Five Precepts, and actually, Angela, you could put those resources in the chat box. Yeah, he definitely, like, his definition of or phrasing of the fifth precept is diet for a mindful society. And it includes unwise consumption of media in different digital forms. And in the Refuge resource book in the chat box, there's different writings from all different teachers from all traditions on the Five Precepts. That is quite wonderful. Yeah. So yes, I believe that it could be. Strictly what the Buddha laid out, no, but he didn't have this technology at his time, right? So yeah, I think what intoxicates the mind? I mean, what dulls the mind? What distracts the mind? What leads us to act in unwise and unkind ways? I mean, in the scriptures, there's the story. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where this is from, but in the Tibetan tradition, it talks about how, one man was trying to protect the Five Precepts. So, okay, the least concerning is the fifth one. So I'll just do, for some reason, he engaged in the fifth one. And then by taking intoxicants, he then did all the other four, because you lose your wits. So, yeah, I mean, here at the Abbey, we train in being very mindful about our consumption of news. We don't have personal cell phones. We only use cell phones for very practical purposes. Like we have to really have one in the modern world for two-factor authentication and different things like that. But to really ask ourselves, how much do I need to consume, and what is the impact that it has? Yeah, I closed my Facebook account before I ordained because I could see that at work I'd go on a break and I would just mindlessly scroll, and I wanted some distraction and relief from like the mental work that I was doing, but it was mindless and dulling, and I'm like, wow, I am just like scrolling my life away. And so I shut it down and banned it from and that was, again, freedom to use my time and my energies in a skillful way. Yeah, good question.
Thank you, Moku.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Venerable, again, on the repeat something you just said again is really important. It's very easy to miss, which is that the precepts are freedom.
Mm.
Yeah. When you practice them, people think of it as like tying you up, but it's actually freedom.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to go to a question from the Q&A box. Uh, could you share the words for affirming ritual that we can use every month or 2 weeks?
Yes, they are in the chat box. On the
Okay.
link that says Lay Pasada, you'll find the whole ceremony there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And also in the Pearl of Wisdom prayer book, there's a link to that, and the ceremony is also in
Okay.
there.
Awesome. And then I think we can also email it to everybody who attending this. Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's take a live question from Jacob. Jacob, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
You
This
have
is
a friend.
I was hoping to open up the theme that I heard in the first two questions around ethical practice being a process, and just invite some advice around this idea of capacity. I think when I watch people try to implement ethics, right, it's the easy part is to see that it's beneficial. The hard part is to judge how far I push myself in order to enact my good intentions. And to try to gauge what is my capacity and how much is practical, right? You use the advice of practical, but that judgment is, I notice is very difficult for some people. It's difficult for me sometimes.
Can you give me one example? Jacob, could you give me one example from that's...
Sorry, I muted myself prematurely and then couldn't unmute myself.
Yeah.
Give me an example. Like, I don't know, even just the story that you told of the worms, right? You had a realization that you couldn't save all of them, and then you decided to do as much as you could. So how did you decide how much you could do, right? Based upon your responsibilities and the time you had and the energy and all of that, right? I think, I hear stories sometimes of great teachers who cancel their whole day to clear the road of the worms, right? But then that's not something that I feel like I would be able to do. That would cause me a lot of stress, and maybe I would be late for something. Like how do I make those decisions?
I think these decisions are very personal. And it's kind of like learn by doing. I mean, I in that situation or the very situations, it's like I walk past and then I feel guilty. And then it's like I'm not going to enjoy this walk to like for exercise if walking past. It's like that my mind is already in turmoil by not engaging in what would be of benefit. And so then I just slow down and I keep moving forward one by one and get what I can. And then I know that the time frame, the next thing I need to be back for. And so then I time it so that I can do it for as long as I can, and then I go back to what I'm needed for, knowing that it'd be largely impossible to save all of them. Yeah, it didn't occur to me to just literally take on the task of clearing that road of all of them, and people will rejoice in me being late because of doing this virtuous activity. So, but then there's teachers like Lama Zopa Rinpoche who would see roadkill on like driving to the airport and be hours late for something, maybe even miss a flight, to recite prayers over the corpse of an animal so that it can have a good rebirth and have that connection in future lives. So, yeah, I aspire to that. And we start in small, where I have a habit. Whereas if I see a dead animal, I will go and recite mantra over it, and blow on it, or even put blessed saliva onto it from the power of reciting mantra. So start where we are and then just build. Because, I mean, one of the qualities of karma is that it increases, and the momentum and the habit brings up, and then more and more bigger, grander, powerful actions can be done because it's just natural. It will just flow, and then we're not actually having to push ourselves. And sometimes we have to nudge ourselves. Like I had to nudge myself, like, no, slow down, do what you know is right. But then the nudging went away. Now it's just what I want to do, what I can rejoice in doing, what I feel really good about doing.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Venerable. Okay, let's take another live question from Michael. Michael, please unmute yourself.
Good evening. Wonderful to be with you, Venerable, and wonderful to be with so many people from so many different places. I want to share a little story rather than a question. I've been a Lamrim student now for 14 years. And very early in my practice, I remember going up to my Venerable teacher and saying to Venerable, when I sit down and I'm meditating and I have these past memories of indiscretion, I said, how do I deal with these? And Venerable just looked at me and he said, just don't do them. And as simple as that sound, I went home and I meditated on that. I thought of that, what that meant. Being raised in the West and being raised as a Catholic, what I saw was there was always somebody who on the receiving end of all my indiscretions. In each one of those 5 precepts that eventually I got to take, I had seen that I had broken them many times. But there was somebody on the receiving end of that I had hurt. And when Venerable said, just don't do it again, it was in that moment that I realized it was within my power.
Yes.
That had never been taught to me in my upbringing. We went and repented. We asked for forgiveness from an outside intervention.
Yeah.
But Dharma allows us to be able to take full responsibility to be able to move forward. So I just wanted to share that because all these indiscretions are going to come up when we're going through our meditation, and being able to see that the way of dealing with them is just don't do them again. And it was a door opening for me to be able to embrace the Dharma. So I just wanted to share that, Venerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That's such an important point because this relates right back to the point that was made by Venerable in the opening video about how too often ethical conduct is a cause, lack of ethical conduct is a cause for low self-esteem and self-hatred. Because we do things that we feel really poorly about, and it feels like that it defines us, it binds us in this poor self-view. Whereas, yeah, we are empowered to change what we do and who we are and completely transform how we think about ourselves through not doing these things again and actually doing their opposite. Not killing, but also protecting life. Not stealing, but also protecting and respecting other people's properties and so forth. So, yeah, this is very empowering.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's take a live question from Venerable Nguyen. Venerable Nguyen, please unmute yourself.
So now I just want to share something. I think that just following the precepts mechanically doesn't make sense. If we combine observing the precepts with the mindfulness meditation practice, then the wisdom can gradually arise. And when the wisdom arises, then we naturally understand what we should do and what we should not do. And in many situations, we don't need to consciously remember each individual precept because the wisdom guides our actions. And sometimes we may feel confused about how to deal with the problems, how to handle a particular situation. But with the mindfulness and the wisdom, we can respond in a way that is both effective and compassionate. Yeah, that is my sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Okay, we have time for one live question and one question online. So let's take a live question from Peggy. Peggy, please unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I wanted your advice. I have struggled with the same thing as June, and I try to avoid any conscious killing. I know even though I'm a vegan and vegetarian most of my life, that in the process of cooking boiling water, I kill microbes, and I try to give a little prayer for them. But I volunteer in habitat restoration, and a lot of what we do in habitat restoration is pulling invasive species. And I even find I do this in my garden so they don't interfere with my native plants there. And so I am consciously killing. And I feel terrible about it. And I say a prayer to them and apologize and ask them to return as a native plant. And I don't know what else to do. And if you have any advice for these types of things, or having a pet and knowing that, my cats, they're eating meat, and I say a prayer and of thanks to the food before I feed it to them. And I don't know what else I can do other than that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have acres of forest land at the Abbey, and we take it as a way of stewarding the land, that we take care of it. And fires are a danger for us here, particularly right now. And so we do forest thinning. We limb the trees up to a certain height. We try and also preserve the meadowland by removing invasive species, the weeds. And it's difficult because, one, there's the pulling of the actual plants themselves. We don't consider them to be sentient. So, I mean, they're alive, but they don't have consciousness. So I wouldn't say that we're like killing a sentient being by cutting down a tree or pulling out a weed. Unfortunately, what often happens is that there's living beings on these plants that are harmed in the process, and to take as much care with that as possible. Yeah, I mean, we've made the decision at the Abbey that we need to do this to protect the land, to protect the Abbey itself, to protect the inhabitants, that we engage in this forest work for those reasons. And then we dedicate the merit for any sentient beings that are harmed. Like we have working bee days, and sometimes we have burn piles. And we know that some sentient beings might be killed in the burn piles, but they're done for a way to protect the forest, protect the land, protect the Abbey. So we dedicate merit, and there's no intention at all to harm any living being, and we do as much as we can to prevent that. And it's like, yeah, like you said, like with even being vegan, you grow crops. It's like when the crops are harvested, then countless living beings and bugs are harmed in the process. It's like impossible to live and not harm. So again, we come back to what our intention is. Yeah, and then with the having animals, I mean, we have 4 cats at the Abbey. They chose us. They either arrived on their own or someone left them at our doorstep. And unfortunately, I don't think they found a way for cats to be vegan yet. So we do have cat food and things out that we have to feed them, and it's kind of like what to do. So again, we have no intention to harm. We're actually trying to protect life. Like we try and sustain the lives of our cats, and we walk them on leashes so that they don't harm the wildlife. Or a few of the really old ones now, they're allowed out without a leash because they're not killing machines like they used to be. So again, do the best that we can. And like you said, like doing prayers before you boil the water, oh my goodness, how wonderful. And blessing the food before you feed it to your animal. I mean, this is where the intention is powerful. Yeah, like may you be connected to whatever beings are forming the food to feed your pets. In future lives, may you be connected in the Dharma. May this be a cause for that. Then there can be some sense of peace and joy, actually, that you're making the best of the situation. Yeah, and there are choices that we can make. Like, we don't have a pet snake, we're going to have to feed it alive mice, right? So there's decisions that we make, or the pets that we get are from rescue. They're not from that way. We're just protecting life, saving life, and then it comes with some consequences. But again, we try and make the best of it.
Thank you. We still have one more question, but we're out of time, so I guess we have to ask that next week. Or shall I just tell you the question, Venerable? This could be quick. So this person asks, sometimes I answer questions from others or provide information to the best of my knowledge, but then later on, as I learn more, I realize what I said previously was untrue. So does this constitute breaking the lying precept?
No, I mean, with lying, there's the intention to deceive.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, coming back to intention, I would recommend there in volume 2 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, there's 3 whole chapters on karma, and it breaks down the 10 non-virtues, of which lying is one, in great detail about what actually constitutes a full break and the different parts. And it's so helpful to see the different aspects that constitute a full action of a karma that would then throw a next life, or to see what this actually means. But to lie means to intend to deceive. So making a mistake isn't lying, it's just making a mistake. I mean, if it's about the Dharma, it's really good if you can go back and correct the misinformation. Maybe that's not possible, and then you rejoice that you now know more than you did, and go forward giving the correct information. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Venerable. Okay, Venerable, can I invite you to close with a blessing or dedication?
Sure. So really rejoicing in all the merit we've generated in this short time together, and may it inspire ourselves and all living beings to do no harm and be of benefit, and to live in ethical conduct so that all beings may achieve the happiness they seek. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May the born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, dear Venerable. My friends, please bow to our teacher. Thank you so much thank you, Venerable, for being here with us. Friends, as a reminder, this recording will be uploaded onto the wisdom.net YouTube channel. Like and subscribe, tell all your friends. And if you'd like to show your appreciation and gratitude to our teacher today, Venerable Lamsel, you may make a donation to Sravasti Abbey. We'll share the link by chat and by email. Next week, Venerable Thubten will continue to guide us on the higher training of ethical conduct. And then in 2 weeks' time, which is like August 9 in the US and August 10 in East Asia, we're going to have an after vibe session where we come together for peer Dharma sharing. And this one will be led by Venerable Thubten. Yay. So the sign-up link will be sent to you by email. With that, my friends, see you next week. Thank you, everybody.